Hi everyone, you've chosen a really interesting day to join us because I'm here with Stites Clayton, the startup founder, poem writing, robot building, lucid dreamer behind Teespring. Yes, I know it's a mouthful. Thanks so much for being with me, Evan.
Thanks for having me.
There's so much that I want to touch on in our conversation today, but I want to start out with Teespring. Teespring is this really special idea that's making people millions of dollars, and it came out of your co-founder Walker and you trying to save a bar. Can we start out with you telling us what Teespring is and how it works?
What Teespring is the easiest way to go from an idea to building a business or having a product around that idea. There have traditionally been all of these barriers to entry. Like if you want to create a product, you've had to figure out manufacturing, shipping to the customers who actually want to buy it. There are a lot of hurdles to go over, and that keeps most of the creative people out of the business of actually producing the things that they want to see in the market. What Teespring does is it makes it that much easier to go from having an idea to launching it and selling it and actually making real money off of it, not having to worry about all of these issues of upfront costs, logistics, or anything like that. And we use custom t-shirts currently as the vehicle for that. So Teespring today, you come to Teespring, you can design a custom t-shirt or other types of apparel and then sell it, and you'll collect the profit. We'll ship it out to all of the buyers.
1 in 75 people owns a Teespring shirt in the US. How does that make you feel?
I'm really happy about that. It's definitely something that we're proud of, and it's not something that we ever expected to be able to say just 3 years after starting the business. That really came quickly, and it just goes to show how powerful it is when you let people be creative and when you sort of let people create what they want to buy or what they think there's a market for. We've really been able to hit all these niche markets and different types of shirts that nobody really expected people would want to buy. But when there's no upfront costs, all of a sudden you can do all of this creative stuff, not have to worry about it. And I think that's what's really led to a lot of that success and distribution that we've got.
Can you give a couple of examples of people using Teespring?
Yeah, definitely. One example that I always like to give is we had one user very early on in Teespring who had a really funny Facebook page called Big Truckin' Girls. And it was this page dedicated to basically posting pictures of shirtless cowboy-style men standing next to mud-splattered pickup trucks. Something that a lot of people associated with. I think it had about 300,000 Facebook likes. And she wasn't really making very much money off of it. She was only posting some advertisements, maybe making a few $100s a month. One day she discovered Teespring and came up with this slogan, which was, "Don't flatter yourself, cowboy. I was staring at your truck." She put that onto a hoodie and posted it into her group, and immediately it became this phenomenon. And she started selling thousands of units of this shirt. She was making a real living wage off of this Facebook page that she had created instead of just a couple $100s. It changed her life. She was able to buy a house. So all of these things kind of started to percolate as soon as she discovered Teespring and discovered the idea of selling custom apparel to this pre-existing audience that she had created.
And over 20 people have made over $1 million. What was it like when you found that out?
I wasn't actually that surprised at that point because what we have now on Teespring are a lot of power sellers, so people who have figured out a way to really scale businesses on Teespring. And that to me just speaks to the power of our tool, that it's something that somebody can use to sell 10 shirts to their family and friends for a gathering, or it can become this sort of super tool which people use like an eBay power seller would, to really establish a business and sell a lot of shirts. Definitely, I'm proud of all of the sellers that we've had reach that level of success, and it's a lot of hard work on their part too, to continue to be creative and come out with new designs that people want to buy. Yeah, very exciting for me.
Aside from the manufacturing and the platform and everything, what are some things that you guys are doing to help your springers?
Yeah, so we are constantly coming up with new tools, better interfaces for them, We're looking to allow them to have better analytics so they can understand who's buying and what they're buying. We're also doing things to actually make that production piece and the quality of what we're producing even better. One thing that I wanted to talk about was our production facility. We're opening up in northern Kentucky, so it's really exciting. Kind of next step that we're going to take to make it so that you can deliver products even faster. The quality is going to be even more consistent, and we're going to be able to probably provide even better value with that too.
And you guys are going to be employing 300 people there, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's another really exciting thing for me about this business is that not only are we able to employ a lot of people, within the company. It's compared to a traditional software startup, we're really able to create a lot more jobs because there's a fulfillment piece, there's the manufacturing, there's a lot more that kind of goes into the production of these T-shirts that create a lot of jobs as compared to, say, a software as a services company where you create some software engineering roles. Maybe you have an office, a customer service office. But what we're doing here is really creating a lot of jobs. And the people who are using our platform are actually, that's kind of like another form of job creation in that we're allowing people to create their own work by selling on Teespring.
With the people who are working directly with you guys on the team, now you have over 200 people and you're going to have more when you open up in Kentucky or Walker, and you still able to play a role in hiring?
Oh, we definitely play a role. The farther along that we go, the more abstracted we have to be. So it's more us kind of setting guidelines, setting company principles, values, things that we should be looking for in people. Obviously, we don't get to do the same kind of hands-on with every single applicant that we would have done in the past. I mean, I can remember just a year ago, there was a time when I was very intimately involved in our engineering recruiting. I was interviewing every single engineer that came through the door. Frequently, I was the first person that they would talk to. And I loved that. I really liked that level of involvement, but it was unsustainable. And that's actually a theme throughout the growth of our company and what that's looked like as our roles as founders have changed. That there have been things that we really like to do and things where we want to be involved, but we simply don't have time to. And so that's where it comes down to hiring great people who you trust to handle those things for you.
When you talk about building the business, Evan, I know you guys participated in Y Combinator and had a really great experience. What are the 3 key takeaways that you took from that program that are informing all of these decisions you're making as the company scales?
So Y Combinator was really great for us. I think that one of the big things we got out of it was just being brought into the Silicon Valley ecosystem, and sort of that's a big value add with YC is that they kind of put you on the map. They legitimize you, and they put you in front of a lot of the key players in the space. The takeaways for me, I heard one was definitely perseverance. I mean, a lot of the stories that are told at Y Combinator are the ones, even the founders like the Airbnb guys who at some points were kind of living off of
Cereal.
Cereal. Like those are the types of stories that a lot of people were telling, right? That just kind of give you that message of you need to stick through it, and even if it doesn't always look great, there are going to be dips, but if you stick to the path, you'll get there. And I think that really means like the entrepreneurial path doesn't necessarily mean that your idea is perfect as it is. You might need to pivot. You might need to do something differently. But sticking to the goal of creating something and building your own company is a really important theme. Another key takeaway from YC was just that growth is paramount. I mean, growth is what makes a startup, and what makes it special, what makes it interesting to investors and separates it from all of the sort of later stage or stagnant companies that are out there. When you lose growth, then you really lose that edge, and so that should be the focus for startups. Should be following growth, and sometimes that means being a little bit less idealistic, being willing to make business decisions based on where growth is, where you're seeing traction, and even accepting that sometimes it may not be what you expected, it may not be what you intended, but you should probably follow it when it's there.
What's an example of that that's occurred for you guys?
Oh, for when we started Teespring, like coming out of college, and our original story about the bar, saving the bar, we were imagining that people were going to use Teespring in a similar way to that. It was
Mm-hmm.
going to be all about fundraisers, saving the bar, college students who didn't want to organize their own kind of shirt sale type things. Um, so for the first year of our business, we were really pounding the pavement trying to get users of that nature in on the platform. That was kind of our idea of what it was going to look like. But what ended up happening was people like the Big Trucking Girls Facebook page came along, and they had so much success in a way that we hadn't expected, which was on Facebook. And so from there, we kind of realized that there was a lot of potential in social media, in influencers, like YouTubers, and these other spaces that we actually hadn't been paying as much attention to. But once it opened up, we really followed that.
For pitching in particular, whether it was the early days when you guys were trying to pitch that college demographic or now when you're pitching new customers or investors, the known mantra is that you've got to find the right people at the right time and give them the right pitch. What
Hmm.
have you guys learned about pitching since you started?
The right pitch is different for different people at different times. So it's good for the pitch to be a living document. But at the same time, you have to have something that you can just reel off without even thinking. And that should be a really short, to the point explanation of what we're doing. Teespring, it hasn't always been easy for us to explain because what we're doing is kind of new. And I think that's true of a lot of successful startups. They're not doing something that's exactly describable in terms of startups that came before. I've heard a lot of investors give me the feedback that they're sick of hearing we're going to be Uber for
I was
blank,
just going to say.
whatever for blank, and like that when they hear that, their minds kind of shut off because they think that the best ideas are actually the ones that you can't describe in such simple terms. That really it's more, there's a sort of like je ne sais quoi that's hard to describe about like these startups, but once you get it, it makes so much sense, right? So that's kind of the difficult. That just makes it more difficult, I guess, because you have to pitch it in a way that doesn't make it sound too simple, but people still have to understand it. My most basic advice, though, for people pitching would just be to keep their pitches short and to the point, because your brain definitely does turn off after the first couple sentences of a pitch. And I also like it when if it's ever possible to make the pitch relevant to the person you're talking to, starting with a story even, or starting with an example that would be really applicable to them, then I think that's just so much more compelling for people.
So let's say you were pitching me. How would you do it?
So, I mean, I think that for a podcast, that it would make a lot of sense to start your pitch something like, have you ever wanted to sell products on your podcast or have a promotional product that you can distribute to all of your fans or all of your, maybe even all of the past participants in the podcast, people who want to rep 33 founders. If you tried to do that today before Teespring, I guess you could say, it would be really difficult to actually gather up all of their information and their orders. But with our product, you can just design it and then send out a link to everyone or promote a link on your video, and it would be that simple. So that would be sort of my pitch for your use case. It would be different if I was talking to someone who was trying to go out and sell millions of dollars in shirts, or somebody else who maybe has a different use case.
I love it because it ties directly into something that Walker said that I'll get to in a minute. Something that's so fascinating about Teespring is without Teespring, it wouldn't be possible. I could go and design shirts, but truthfully, the effort that it's going to take me is never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times those barriers into introduction keep people from doing things. So maybe for me, it's not my passion, but for someone who it is their passion, they have no chance to do it because maybe they don't have the resources.
Yeah.
Something that Walker said that really stood out to me was, this isn't about t-shirts. It's not about crowdfunding. It's about the concept, I'm sure you know the quote, it's about the concept that bringing something to market should be as easy as the idea. All we need is the visionaries behind the ideas. Fortunately for all of us, you guys are the visionaries behind the idea, and the future is truly limitless for what you're doing. Can you give us a glimpse into the next vertical you want to go into? Is that top
Uh,
secret?
it's it's a little bit of a secret, and I'm actually under directions not to make any commitments about what we might be moving into next. Um, something that I'd be happy to allude to is that I'm working on some products that I think are going to make it even easier for people to be successful, even if they don't have a lot of experience in marketing or a lot of existing distribution channels. I think that's a really exciting thing. So trying to find ways to make it so that if you have a great idea, even if you don't know how to go and take that idea to market or promote it online, you're still going to be able to find potentially the people who would want to buy that. There's definitely a world beyond T-shirts that we want to move into, and I don't have specifics around when that's going to happen. Obviously, we already have a lot of other kind of upperwear products, like zip up hoodies were recently added, kids tees, things like that. But our end goal is to make it so that whatever your creativity dictates, or whatever people reasonably would want to create and sell to an audience, will have it available on Teespring.
One of the huge things for you guys is that 60% of your sales are made through social media.
Mm-hmm.
What strategies have you seen people use, maybe for the big truckin', that have been really successful that other springers can use to drive sales?
We've seen a lot of success with people, posting it to their networks, obviously promoting, asking people to promote it. Like one kind of funny strategy, but it's one that I just always love the scrappiness of, was that when we first did the Free Fishco shirt, before Teespring even existed, Walker went on Facebook and he actually chat messaged all of his friends in Facebook chat, anyone who was online. He messaged them, and not only did he say, "Hey, here's this shirt, do you want it?" He said, Can you send this out to everyone on your list for me?" So making that personal plea to your network that they should engage with it, and then tying that into a cause that they're going to associate with. I think that's the recipe for success for somebody who doesn't want to pay for ads, for example. If you're willing to actually go to that step of spending money on advertising for your campaign, then you have a lot more options. But if you're really just trying to promote it in whatever free ways you can, then I think it's very important to make that kind of personal request. Hey, you guys, can you buy this? Or this is supporting blank. I'm really trying to reach my goal, and that's what we've seen work when people kind of go and campaign like that.
The sales ties into a question that we have from our audience. Elizabeth wants to know how to drive sales on mobile. I know a lot of your sales are coming from mobile.
Yeah, we actually are seeing a ton of sales on mobile. I think having a great t-shirt design is the number one most important thing, because on mobile, other content isn't as emphasized, like your description or your title. Those types of things are going to be things people have to scroll down farther to see, compared to on desktop, where all of that just appears right away. So emphasizing the t-shirt, having it look good, I think obviously that's going to help you in any case, because that's what people are buying. But it's even more important on mobile. And yes, our mobile is really big for us. Actually, we do sell more on mobile now than we do on desktop.
Has that changed your strategies at all as a team?
Well, from a product perspective, just taking a mobile first approach, especially on the buyer side, so the campaign pages that we design, it's pretty important for us. And it wasn't something that we immediately recognized when we started Teespring. We actually were thinking, we were kind of tunnel vision on desktop in the beginning. Obviously, we wanted to have it be mobile friendly, but we weren't thinking mobile first. And when we realized that actually mobile accounted for a majority of sales, it changed our thinking around that. to where the mobile design is actually the first thing you figure out, and then you look at the desktop.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
between funding, growing the team, and offering more to your users, Teespring is scaling incredibly fast. You shared before that you didn't think it'd be 3 years to get to this point.
Mhm.
How are you managing the scale as the co-founder of the company, but also just as Evan? Like, how do you go about your day-to-day life thinking this company is getting so big? What can I do to really make a lasting print?
Yeah, it's been really important for me to offload certain things onto the people I can find. When there's things that I think I'm particularly well suited for, I have to create time for them. So what I've done is I actually created a sort of sub team of developers who I work directly with, Teespring Labs, and we're working on some cool projects. And that's a little bit separate from the main product team, which now has the majority of the engineers. And so that allows me to work in a way that I'm more comfortable with. Being, straight out of college, I don't really have any management experience, so it can be a little bit daunting trying to kind of do all this top level leadership, executive board meetings, all of these different things. It's all new to me, and I'm definitely just taking it as it comes. I'm kind of have to stay adaptable. But I think what's also really important is also recognizing where you can contribute value and at what capacity you're most effective, and leaving some time aside for that. So like for Walker, he's great at doing user interface designs. So whenever he's done with all of his management and he's gotten through all of his emails, that's what he loves to do. And so I'm always telling him to, leave some time for that, create time for that. It's crazy to go so quickly from being not only a contributor, but it was only us two, and all we were doing was building, and that was only 2 years ago. And now we're at a point of only managing. So, or like that we could only manage if it was up to sort of just the natural flow of things, we wouldn't get to do any creative work. But I think that by kind of forcing ourselves into it a little bit, into the creative stuff, it keeps us fresh, and it allows us to stay excited about what we're working on.
That's a big thing with the rookies mentality, and it feels funny to say that because, like you said, you're just out of college. You should still be a rookie for a while.
Yeah.
But what do you do in particular? So let's say you're meeting with your personal team,
Mhm.
Teespring Labs. What do you do to get in that creative state of flow, to kind of go back to Evan of 2 years ago and you thought, hey, let me experiment with it. I don't know how it's going to work anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few different things. I started programming again. I got back into that a little bit, and I think it's really about giving yourself kind of a blank canvas, both literally and figuratively. Like one thing that I like to do is like just say, set aside whatever managerial issues I have today, and just let's erase this whiteboard, and I'm going to whiteboard out some ideas that I have about some systems that we could build, and that's where I feel a lot of times where I kind of like get in my zone, and I feel like that creativity and that kind of rush that was, I think, what led to us creating Teespring in the first place, was the fact that Walker and I loved to just kind of have ideas and build them and think big, and getting back to that a lot is great. But there's always plenty of other stuff going on in the organization now that also demands our attention.
So we're talking about creativity, and that leads me to a lot of your personal work that you started with, poetry, literature before you started Teespring. So I want to start out our final section, Evan, by asking you what the word daddy long legs means to you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's my first URL. So I was actually into poetry and art before I ever got into programming, really. And when I got into programming originally, it was because I wanted to program art. I wanted to do like animated poetry and other types of things like that. So I started taking classes on that, and then I realized that could actually be a career. But yeah, the Daddy Longlegs URL for me was kind of my original URL, and it's just the type of spider that lived in my house when I was a kid. So I don't know. I just always really loved those spiders because they actually eat other spiders. So they're the one spider that won't bite you, but will eat the spiders that do.
It's like the great white shark. It's like the most dangerous, but you're not likely to get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as I indicated in the introduction to you were big on lucid dreaming. And like I shared, I had never heard of lucid dreaming before until I stumbled on your site. Can you give us a quick crash course, maybe how you were telling people about it when you were convincing them to take your class at Brown?
Yeah. Oh, that's actually great. A great way to lead into it because lucid dreaming is essentially when you control your dreams. It's actually I don't think of it as much as controlling your dreams, even though that can be kind of an exciting element for and one of the ones that people really associate with. But it's really just being aware of the fact that you're dreaming while you are dreaming. Um, a lot of people don't realize that this is possible. Some people just think it's normal and they don't realize that nobody else does it. They just lucid dream all the time and thought that was just how everyone dreams. Um, and now that there's been a lot of scientific research done on it, it's actually identified as a very particular mental, brain state where most of the brain looks like regular dreaming, but there's one area of the dream that's activated as though you were awake, and it's basically hypothesized that that activation is what gives you that realization to look at the dream, but to feel that you're in the same thread of consciousness, like you would be as a waking person. The way that I pitched this a lot when I was teaching my course or trying to get people to join the course was that it's an opportunity for you to really look inside yourself, sort of, and see what's going on in your head. And also, it can even be extended to, being able to do things like fly or practice things while you're dreaming to really put intentionality into what you're doing while you're asleep. Um, Ultimately, I think it's just kind of one of the best ways for me to sort of like figure out what's going on with myself. It's kind of like self therapy almost. But I think that the biggest reason to do it, the best first reason to do it, is just because it's really, really fun and exciting when you have your first like lucid dreaming experiences. It's definitely worth doing.
It's so wild to me. What's one of your favorite experiences that you've had that you would share with someone to convince them to do it or to try it?
My favorite part of lucid dreaming is when you actually aren't even dreaming about anything. It's almost like the illusion that you're experiencing anything is completely stripped away, and it's just almost just an experience of like this light. So you're almost like talking to yourself or listening to your own kind of inner self speaking to you, and you don't see anything because uh, you realize that even in a dream or in reality, everything that you're seeing is this sort of mental construction that you're creating for yourself. And so in that moment of realization, it's really powerful, and I feel like became for me after I experienced it the core kind of goal of my dream practice, what I was going after.
And so the way that you test that you're in a lucid dream, right, is you plug your nose, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Some people like to do like turning a light switch on and off, which usually won't work if you're dreaming. So if you just kind of remember to do that during the day, then you can do that. You can look at some text, like let's say you're reading, look away, and if the text, when you look back, still says the same thing, that's an indication that you're awake. The nose trick is my favorite one. It's basically you plug your nose and try to breathe through it. And if you can, then you know you're in a dream. And I just really like that one because when you are in a dream and you do it, it's so visceral because you feel the air still going through your nose, and that you associate that feeling with, wow, I'm in a dream. It's really exciting.
I tried it and it didn't work when I was reading your blog. I was like, this is not a dream.
Yeah, exactly. So to really get it going, you kind of have to like do it a lot. You have to habituate yourself into it, because if you don't do it all the time when you're awake, then you aren't going to do it when you're in a dream.
Very cool. You also teach children, Evan, to build robots. So clearly you make the most of your spare time.
Yeah, so that I unfortunately I don't get to do that anymore. But yes, when I first started Teespring, when I was in Providence, I was still doing that. It was a ton of fun. Um, I still care a lot about getting kids involved in technology. I think that it's one of the easiest ways for founders or for anyone in the industry to get involved and just to kind of inspire kids that this is a career path that they should be thinking about. And robotics is one of the best ways to do that because it's just right there halfway in between computer programming and a really fun toy. So we used Lego Mindstorms kit, and basically they created robots to sort of like see who could build the best robot for a race, or to shoot these little balls and see who would hit the other people the most. But I feel like those types of challenges just get people excited about. Get kids excited about technology, and that's something that everyone can agree with, right?
So between giving back in that aspect, running Teespring, writing poetry, keeping all of the creative juices flowing, at the end of the day, Evan, what does this all mean to you? What do you want to look back in 10 or 15 years and say, hey, Teespring was a huge success? What are you excited about for the future?
Yeah, it's really about all the lives that we're changing. I think there's an aspect of the employees here. I want to be able to look back on this and say, Walker and I did right by everybody who worked for us, all of our users, everybody who trusted us. There's a lot of pressure on us right now to continue to take this thing up to another level, to really deliver something even beyond what's already happened. And if we can do that, then I think that we can look back on this and feel like it was a success in terms of the way that our employees experienced it, the number of people we were able to hire. I'd love to be able to say that we're doing socially responsible sourcing someday of all of our products, things like that. And we are really, really lucky to be in the position that we are, to have had as much success as we are. So I definitely am excited about the fact that I will be hopefully kind of able to contribute in a lot more ways later in my career as well, building off of this. And that's a really important thing for me. Although I don't necessarily, I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly what I'm supposed to do yet, but I really want to do something that that means a lot to people.
I think you have everything in line, right? And like I told you at the beginning, we always end our 33 Founders episodes with a question on uncertainty. I just finished college too, and sometimes the pressure of knowing what to do in this startup world can really get to you. How do you deal with that and not let it confine you?
I think that we actually thrive off of uncertainty and risk, and that's exciting for us. The more predictable the outcome is, the less interesting it is to me. That's not where I really want to be spending my time. I like to be in the realm of the uncertain, the risk, the pushing things into a new territory where they haven't been before, or otherwise I frankly am a little bit bored by it. So the biggest balancing act, though, is pursuing the riskier, more uncertain, and potentially more revolutionary paths, while you've already built this big company and a lot of people are relying on you to at least maintain that and to kind of keep that stable. And so that actually calls for things that are more predictable and less uncertain. And so balancing the kind of that burst of just creativity and stuff that we really thrive off as founders with some of the more day-to-day realities of running this company, that's sort of, I think that becomes one of the major challenges of what we're doing.
When you talk about thriving on uncertainty, to me, I'm like, oh my God, how does he do that? Did you train yourself to do that, or have you always thrived on it?
I feel like I've always just felt like I was a little eccentric and that I wanted to do things that people didn't expect. And I've always wanted to do something that was kind of in a different path, like not the traditional path. And I don't really like competing. I don't want to be one of many people trying to achieve some similar goal or trying to kind of like get the highest score or something like that. So just kind of venturing out into new territory. You know, I just love the idea that even if you're going in the wrong direction or you're doing something that's not going to be successful, at least you're going off and you're kind of number one in your own world when you do venture out somewhere new.
I like it. So for someone who is a little bit nervous about uncertainty, your best advice then would be this is going to not only keep you interesting, but you're going to chart your whole new path. So in a sense, you're kind of in control of it too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I talk to a lot of people who are trying to balance, like they're graduating and they're not sure whether they should go work in an established company. And I think a lot of people also have this idea, oh, I'll go work in an established company for 2 years and then I'll go into the uncertainty, or I'll go and start my own thing or whatever. So I usually tell people, like, for me, it was never like that. I knew from day one I knew from the day I had my first job that I wasn't going to be able to go get a normal job and be happy with that. I think it's good to just set your path and just kind of know where you're going. But if you need to go, if you do need to go work somewhere for 2 years or feel it out, do what feels comfortable for you, but don't let your whole life be ruled by fear. Basically, if you never take that leap, then you'll end up regretting it.
I think that's a perfect way to end it. I'm going to use that now as my motivation. So
Okay.
Thank you so much for being with me today, Evan. Can you close with sharing how people can start using Teespring and how they can keep up with you?
Definitely. So if you want to use Teespring, you should check it out. If nothing else, go to teespring.com, design a shirt, send it to your friends. If you think you can make something funny, send it to me if you want. My Twitter is the ESC. It's _ESC, and then my email is evan@teespring. So if you have any questions, you can email me there.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was really great talking to you.